about a month ago. And yeah, I know, you know, I'm always late to everything. I live like 3 lives, all right? You gotta cut me some slack. A little bit of a break. But The Last of Us season finale has aired to fully and utterly mindfuck us. If you haven't had a chance to watch the show, this is your one and only spoiler warning. So the show may very well destroy the concept of morality. The whole show seems to me to be an exploration of how we view the idea of a moral compass, diving into what defines a person and what creates their perception of morality. Wait, you mean it's not Disney's anti-Semitic US military propaganda apparatus? Oh, leaving us questioning what really holds weight to us and what doesn't. And it most likely will leave you questioning what you yourself may really, truly believe in. Is morality truly just purely subjective? Is there truly a moral high ground? Nietzsche would argue that the idea of a moral high ground is an affect of the slave morality, that due to the lack of power, the slave would hold on to a supposed moral high ground based almost exclusively on their own vulnerability. To elaborate, according to Nietzsche, there were 2 primary contending forms of morality. One is the massa morality, that of the powerful, of kings and great men. The might is right thought process, which Nietzsche broke down into further subgroups, the creative genius and the higher man. The second is the slave morality, which was the morality of the oppressed, of the disabled, of the masses, which Nietzsche called the herd. Within that herd, Nietzsche claimed there was 2 groups, the last man. The last man is the mediocre man, one who is content in their own lot in life. A simple man, not striving to pull ahead or to excel at any given trade, lacking in higher values. The slave, a weak man, suffering from feelings of impotence and failure. Nietzsche believed that the slave was genetically chosen as failures, as inferior. Due to that, they are full of envy towards the higher man. This perception of morality is extremely flawed, and at the same time has some seeds of truth, though I'd argue it is overall extremely reductive. This is the morality that you see in Fedra, the main governmental body in the post-apocalyptic dystopia that is the world of The Last of Us. While the Fireflies embody many traits of the slave morality, speaking virtues of equity and self-determination. Though as in real life, as you learn more about the Fireflies, you see their lines blur, as their intentions with Ellie become clear, rooted in their foremost utilitarian philosophy that they have learned through their existence under the reign of Fedra. They are more than happy to put Ellie's agency and life on the back burner. No, on the chopping block. But of course, this would be an anarchist criticism of not only the Fireflies, but many authoritarian socialist and communist formations. While Fedra, on the other hand, is clearly representative of the US and other fascist nations like it. But let's rewind. Through their journey to find the Fireflies in an empty, zombie-infested nation, Ellie and Joel find themselves in the midst of the aftermath of a revolution in Wyoming. Due to an attempted ambush, Joel and Ellie end up killing a few of the locals and end up on the wrong side of a recently liberated guerrilla army. The guerrillas are in the process of a purge of collaborators when our protagonists find themselves forced to hide from an enraged revolutionary leader named Kathleen, who didn't take the murder of her own very lightly. The tragedy that is the character of Kathleen is a violent yet sympathetic one. From what we can glean of her backstory, her brother was the leader of the resistance movement. He was apparently a very ideologically virtuous man that had a very Kantian ethical framework. Kantian ethics are defined by the idea that an action can only be moral if it is motivated by a sense of duty, and its maximum may be rationally willed to a universal objective law, which this theory is absolutist and black and white in nature. We don't know what exactly preceded her brother's downfall, but we know a man named Henry sold her brother to Fedra in exchange for medicine for his little brother Sam, which his actions led to Kathleen's brother's execution. Kathleen, enraged and devastated by this, picks up arms and leads this same resistance movement to victory, utilizing her emotions, her rage to fuel a successful revolt, implementing tactics that she openly recognizes her own brother would not approve of. At one point, a man who assumed to be her second in command said this:
"Your brother was a great man. We all loved him. But He didn't change anything. You did. We're with you.
Saying that she was able to accomplish something that his ideological framework prevented him from accomplishing. This tends to be the problem with Kantian and other deontological ethical theories. Deontology is a theory where an act is right or wrong depending on the act itself and if it fits in certain principles, suits, or rules. As in to say, there are absolute universal laws that must never be broken, which, as in real life, presents the problem of lacking pragmatism. Is the virtuous man then truly virtuous or just naive if all the goals he put forward go up in flames for the sake of his moral high ground? Kathleen, however, took a more consequentialist approach, specifically an egoist approach. Her moral compass was based on if the consequence of the action was personally beneficial to oneself, which in a post-apocalyptic revolution, it might not be the ideal ideology. As we see, the threads of resentment and hatred burrow so deep into her heart and mind that it ends up impairing her judgment, which leaves her newly claimed infrastructure compromised, presumably fallen to the infected. Even when we talk about the guerrilla revolutionaries with Kathleen, right? I go a bunch into her and then realizing, like, you know, she was really, for me, an empathetic character, regardless, like, of how fucked up she was. Like, I could really empathize with why she's that way, right? Everything makes perfect fucking sense why she'd be that way. All her decisions make sense. But like one of the things I critiqued in there though with her specifically is the she was taking a consequentialist egoist framework, right, as her like moral compass. And the problem with that is it allowed her id, her shadow, whatever you want to call it, to put deep roots of fucking hatred to the point that it affects her thinking logically. You know what I mean? Because that's you see the end. She just like sets off this big fucking situation that then gets literally her whole revolution destroyed, right? Just that quick. For Kathleen, it was like that hatred and resentment got so deep. She let, like, instead of letting it fuel her was one thing, but then it let it be so deep in her heart and her mind that it affected her judgment, right? Her judgment was off. There's no way they should be trying to pursue Henry to that degree. They should be like, well, fuck it. If he shows up again, he's dead. You know, let this nigga run. Let's focus on, like, making our infrastructure and doing those things. There's no way that should have like drove her, and that's what took her down and destroyed everything she was trying to build. And it felt like that was her id and her shadow letting it get too much root. That there's place for that. There's place for that shadow, that subconscious, that darkness, those things that want to pull at you to like, oh, I want my vengeance for my brother. I want them to pay for it. There's place for that, but there's like, if you let it get too rooted and too much into you, they can fuck with your logic, and that's what felt like happened with her, at least from my perspective.
I would agree with that as well. And it was clear, like, she had a clear decision to make at a certain point. Either like protect the community and her brother's legacy, right? That community was her brother's legacy, supposedly. And they saw that there were literally cracks in the pavement under their feet that was going to lead to the destruction of their whole society. So they could have addressed that, or they could have wasted their time chasing down Henry. And they wasted their time chasing down Henry and lost on both fronts. It was interesting to me going back. I forgot about that section. And this would be something maybe to touch on, how revolutionaries, live on after death. In a weird way, you kind of have to prepare, like if you want to get into the philosophical, from a philosophical standpoint, you have to prepare people for your inevitable absence. And for as great as her brother seemed to be, according to, everyone that knew him, he didn't prepare his community for his inevitable absence, and it immediately collapsed when he was gone.
Right, he was too deontological with it. He was too ideological in the way he viewed the right and wrong today, and that's why his revolution didn't succeed when he was alive. It was also one of the things they kind of like mentioned in the fucking show was like he was too principled for his own good, and then I even questioned that: is that really a good thing, or is that just being naive? You know what I mean? And like having to bring that into a real question, because there's a lot of deontological stances and stuff that people like are so, into the ethical hierarchies that they think that by having high ethics, it's going to get us to a better place, when really it's a little more mixed than that. It's a little more muddy than that, because sometimes things you got to like step on to be able to accomplish the goals. Some of the things you don't want to do, you got to do. Now, does that mean Kathleen trying to kill a fucking 10-year-old? Like, bro, you're tripping. You're bugging. I get Henry, but leave the little kid alone. Leave the little kid alone. Henry's willing to die for what he did. Just leave the little kid alone. The kid had nothing to do with it. The kid just had cancer. It wasn't his fault. He was sick. That's it. Yeah. And like the answer being kids die is not a good answer to me. That's not like a revolution.
That shit was so raw. I was like, yo, the kids die? They don't have to. Like, this one doesn't have to. This nigga's perfectly healthy.
Stop the cap. I destroy every fitness sympathizer. Call me Darth Vader. So I force choke that bitch Henry and Hulk slam him into the wood chipper. Pop his little brother's hand like overripe grape too.
Yo, chill the fuck out, you aggro ass nigga. That's wild as hell. We better than that, fool. That's a goddamn kid.
You lying to yourself. I know you better than you know yourself. I've peered into your very soul. You tell yourself that you care, that you're empathetic. But the truth is, you come from the dirt, the grime, the filth of civilization. You would happily bathe in their blood, feast on their bread, sleep in their bed, wear their jewels, rocking it as trophies, prizes of war. I know you, because I am you.
And my point still stands. We gotta have ethics even in war. I will not be led by my id. I will not be led by my shadow. That's the problem that happened to Kathleen. And the shadow led to the end of her and her revolution. After the conflict, Joel, Ellie, Henry, and his little brother Sam, who they had met while fleeing from Kathleen, make it to the hotel where they take shelter. The next morning, Sam turns into one of the infected and tries to attack Ellie. During the struggle, Henry grabs the gun and meets an ethical dilemma. With Joel looking down the barrel, we see Henry grasp how all the people he betrayed, all the people he harmed, was all to amount to nothing. In a moment of lucidity, he realizes what he has to do and turns and eliminates his brother. And moments later, unable to deal with the grief and I'm sure the guilt, he alt-deletes himself. We see what I'd argue is a crucial reality manifest. Morality may very well derive from our knee-jerk reactions instead of our logic and principles. Given he was moments away from taking Joel and Ellie off the board to his own peril. Which brings to mind the assertion of the research of psychologists Jonathan Haidt and Joshua Green, which surmise that we use morality to justify our gut reactions. Which, if we are honest, we can see the emotional irrationality that comes into play daily, especially over the internet. Cause motherfuckers out here acting like the last controversial take equates to the undead rise of the Third Reich. Shit. But when there is actually a flesh-eating fascist at their front door, they say he's just a debate, bro. It's okay.
Well, come get me then. Come get me. Come get me if you dare!
As we continue to follow Joel and Ellie, making a long journey north with a quick stop by some elder's house who warned them about dead bodies ahead. Well, after first holding them at gunpoint, the standard American greeting. After they head out, they run to the group that was responsible for the bodies. They are actually overall friendly, though. Well, after a quick sniff test. No, not that type of sniff test. It turns out that the group they ran into was the group that Joel's brother Tommy had joined. It turns out they're a bunch of communists led by a former prosecutor? Okay, I'm suspending belief. Let's just say she had a change of heart.
That's what happened, right? Ticks make good blood donors, and prosecutors make courageous communist leaders, too. We live in an upside-down world, where people walk on their heads and talk out their feet.
After Joel tried to pass Ellie off to his brother like a used pair of socks, he realizes that she needs some agency in the decision. Which, given that Joel is actually the old blood-stained, worn pair of jeans with moth holes in it that's been in the back of your closet for the last 5 years, Ellie may have made the wrong choice. Or did she? I mean, if you like antiques. Either way, they head out to find the Firefly lab, which they find abandoned. As they prepare to leave, they see a group of bandits approaching, so they attempt to sneak out the back. Unfortunately, one of the bandits sees them, which Joel does away with effortlessly. Well, if effortlessly means you let bandit number 1 plunge his knife into you like he was about to stuff and baste a Thanksgiving turkey, they escape by the hairs on their chinny chin chins and take refuge in some abandoned buildings. Round of applause for the squatters' rights. But that knife must have had the Rona, because Joel isn't looking too good. So Ellie goes out in an attempt to find food and medicine. During this, she finds a deer and kills it. When she comes upon the animal, 2 men are in the process of taking it. She pulls out on them, making it clear they are not taking that deer. The men surmise that she has an injured friend and offer to trade her medicine for half of the deer. She reluctantly accepts their offer. As one leaves, the other one stays as insurance. During their interaction, it comes out that they are the same group that attacked them earlier. At that moment, the other man returns and Ellie and the man have a standoff, in which she takes the medicine and forfeits the deer altogether, quickly fleeing. Running back to treat Joel, she quickly realizes she's been tracked. So she goes outside to draw them away, which leads to her capture by what turns out to be a church community of cannibals, led by a Pedialyte drinking pastor that seemed to want to make Ellie his child bride, like he lived in Missouri and his name was Mike Moon.
You know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This specifically horrific character brings me to think of a glaring weakness in Nietzsche's argument. This Mike Moon impersonator is a representative of so much of the power of the structure of the church. But according to Nietzsche, the church is based off the slave morality, but in its own way clearly manifests the traits of the master morality. What gives? Well, like most others who philosophize about morality, he trapped himself into black and white thinking, making everything polarized, when in truth humans and our philosophies are adaptive. Nietzsche, for some irrational reason, based a lot of his thoughts off pre-Christian European society. You know, mega for the intellectual Anglo-Saxon. But in doing that, his theories were outdated by day one. Not to mention the shifting of power lends them to different sets of moralities for different leaders and congregations. Where though churches often preach the slave morality, their structures are still that of the master morality, and how they justify the higher men, the creative genius, and even the Ubermensch was, instead of their might being why, the greater men, it was God's blessing that strengthened their hand, inspired their soul, and anointed them king, giving them might. Subtle but an effective difference for propaganda. But Full Moon over here quickly shows his nature. Yet despite the cannibalism and Pedialyte drinking, the force of God's shepherd was able to maintain power. Sounds like all history, huh? Fortunately, we get to see justice implemented by Ellie and Joel, which also makes it clearer than ever that Joel sees Ellie as a daughter, all but guaranteeing what happens next. Joel and Ellie are approaching the next possible Firefly location. At this point, they're bonding tough, as you would after the traumatic shit that they have been through together. Then their moment of joy is interrupted by flashbangs, where they are disoriented and knocked unconscious. Which, by the way, there's no way in hell those flashbangs would knock them down outside like that. They are like overpowered firecrackers at most outside. I know from experience. Inside, well, that's a different story. Joel wakes up, and in comes Marlene to explain what's going on. She lets him know that Ellie is being prepped for surgery. He demands that he gets to see Ellie first. Marlene sits there analyzing every micro expression on his face. She could automatically tell this is not the same Joel that she first spoke to. She slowly starts to explain that the cordyceps take root in the brain, and that Ellie will not be surviving the surgery. I'm just realizing I forgot to explain something crucial to y'all. Ellie is the only immune person on the face of the planet, and they have to extract her brain to make a cure. Yup, the classic trolley problem the most medically unethical way. Now, of course, Joel is not having none of that and catches a slight beatdown. Then Marlene's ass sends 2 martially trained soldiers to escort him out. Like, for real? What is she thinking? Joel's like the younger brown Liam Neeson became the Dragonborn from Skyrim, Well, minus the racism. So of course he disarms and kills the soldiers and proceeds to massacre every single soldier in between him and Ellie. He gets to surgery and the doctor pulls a scalpel and says he will not be taking her. Joel, without hesitation, shoots the doctor in his head.
What that dumbass expect? Guns versus scalpel. Who you think's gonna win?
Yo, chill the fuck out. In the parking lot, Joel is confronted by Marlene, and she tries to talk him down, and, of course, he shoots her. As she begs for her life, he states that she's just going to come after Ellie anyways and executes Marlene. My question I gotta ask is just because I'm curious. What would you do in that situation then if you had the options that were laid out in front of you?
I would take the L if I was Joel. We're talking about ending a plague, a zombie apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? In a way, Joe took away Ellie's agency. Or at least that's what's depicted. Ellie kind of had understood what she was getting into and kind of felt like there was a purpose in her death. And it was kind of a selfish act of Joel, from my perspective, to say, I'm not worried about all these people. I'm not worried about Ellie's actual desires. I know where I'm at in this issue, and I'm gonna act on that. If you ask me, like, do I sacrifice, one person and end the zombie apocalypse? I end the zombie apocalypse. Don't judge me.
There's no like good answer, right? Because also when you think about like the Fireflies, they also gave no fucks about Ellie's agency.
That's
no
true.
Fucks whatsoever.
That's true. That's true.
And you're taking somebody's life without giving any fucks about it. It's a hard situation because the way humanity has become at that point, I can't honestly say I wouldn't be Joel. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be like, no, fuck all y'all motherfuckers. None of y'all deserve this shit in the first place. We really deserve to go extinct the way we moving. Clearly, we don't give a fuck about nobody. Like, fuck y'all. You know what I mean? And I definitely identify as a revolutionary. I'm for the people. I'll give my life for it. But then at a point like that, there's like, what is there? Like you having to deal with like fascists on one side, cannibals on another side. The closest thing you got to people who are actually solid are the fucking community. The communist community led by a fucking prosecutor, which just blows my mind.
I forgot about that. I thought about you when that happened. But like Pete, and that's something to think about. Like he killed all of them and took Ellie home to low key a anarcho-socialist utopia. built by a prosecutor. You know what I'm saying? I know you don't like that, but I think the average lawyer, having been in the courtroom, there's a depersonalization from that type of work in like reality. So I can see a person doing that for parts of their lives and then flipping a switch and becoming an anarcho socialist. So
it's hard for me because to them people's lives are fucking games, right?
True.
They play with fucking fast sentences to like throw people's lives away, and it's just a game to them. It's not even like you feel like you're necessarily evil. It's not even that. It's a game to them. So like I have a hard time believing the prosecutor would become a communist all of a sudden. I'm like, yeah, that's like one of the most capitalist professions on the face of the planet. That's more capitalist than the fucking lawyers that we criticize for how capitalist they are in the first place. They're like the peak capitalism, right? And so it's just like, they're the auction block, right? And so for me, it's hard to believe. I think of being a revolutionary, definitely thinking about the collective. If you're trying to be a revolutionary like the revolutionaries I look up to, right? Like, you're definitely thinking of the collective more. I think my disagreement, was in the state of what the society that was proposed was in. Y'all don't deserve that sacrifice. You feel what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't deserve that sacrifice at that point.
What am I saving?
Justification. Like, what am I saving? Like, and the thing is, I think there's more like right now, the world we live in right now still has more opportunity than that world did, even with the cure to it, right? It still have more opportunity to be a world that is not just utterly fucked, right? But even with that cure in that world, like with what people are willing to do, like, is that really the world worth saving? Does she deserve to die for that? And the thing is, like, do I think she would have sacrificed herself? Yes. Do I think if I saw her as my child, I would have made any different choice? Fuck no. Nah, I bet. But nah, even though she wasn't my child, if I would have seen her that way, like, or seen her as my family, like, nah, it ain't happening. Not for y'all don't deserve it. Like, You know what I mean? If you deserve it, if you got her consent, you deserve it. If you showed evidence that you deserve that sacrifice, it was a different conversation. And I might end up, self-deleting afterwards because I don't like how that worked and I don't want to be in that world no more. But I could be more on you if that was like shown any evidence of deserving that. But what all evidence was is like a world where people just take. Like the revolutionaries just take, Fedra just takes, random people just take. The only people who didn't just take were the old people at the fucking out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not Maori, but I get your point.
The indigenous folks that were
the indigenous folks that were there chilling. Yeah.
Yeah. They were the only ones that were like actually in any type of balance. Everybody else was just me, I. Even the revolutionaries, even the people who said they're collectivists. Well, and the one community that happened to be started by a prosecutor, which still just doesn't cute to me. But like those were the only examples of anything salvageable. Everything else was just the revolutionaries were fucking like nobody has a problem with this. Like even the doctor, think about what a doctor's supposed to do. You don't have a problem with this? You don't think that maybe you should talk to first? Like even if you know 100% that's gonna work, right, bro. And so the thing is like there was no salvageable thing. And not only that, like they're willing to do anything to accomplish that.
He wasn't thinking about that like on some. To him, I don't even think it was a moral conundrum. It was I can't take losing another daughter. Period. Yeah. That's the end of that. I can't take losing another daughter. So fuck the world. Don't ask me for shit. Everything you want, you got to work hard for it. You know what I'm saying? Who is that? Is that ODB? Where'd I get that from?
Yeah. Here's the thing I want to like emphasize too. It's more than just like losing our daughter, right? You have two people in the motherfucking world left to you. Two people out of all your community, everybody you ever knew that mattered to you. And now you about to take one of them, these last two people, all the hell with y'all. And I think that's a different thing. Cause like, imagine like, cause for me, and now there isn't this class layer to this, but on the way I can relate to Joel is specifically like if every lumping person, every people I grew up with is gone, except for two, and you try to take one of them, fuck all y'all. Yeah. Fuck all y'all. We already paid the price. And now you just supposed to like, we gotta suffer more for your salvation? Fuck off. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like, I could relate to Joel on that. Now, like I said, I don't think, because if I was in the Firefly shoes, I don't then see them as the bad guy. I see where they're coming from too. They're like, well, we still got people that we love. We still got people we're trying to save. And even though I knew this girl since she was born, I'm going to sacrifice her to save the rest of our people, right? And I see why they're coming from too. But that's why I'm a big fan of amorality, because I would be probably on whatever side I was on. Right. You see what I'm saying in that situation? That like if I was Team Joel, I'm going to be like, no, fuck that, I'm saving Ellie. But if I was the Fireflies, I'm like, yo, I feel horrible about this, but like, we got to do this. Yeah. Now, I'll probably get consent from Ellie, especially when you know that she's probably going to say fucking yes. Like, despite it's going to cost her her life. Like, I would be on the more, let's get consent from her first. Right. Like, we might, instead of drugging Ellie, let's just drug Joel until we can talk to Ellie. Because Joel's going to be the problem. Like, Joel's going to be the problem.
I'd have been known, like, look, we got to take Joel off the board. They should have known that. That's another question. That lump and probe element is actually a really good point of analysis, because I was just either writing something, talking about something. I don't know. It was part of my conservative thing where I'm trying to like explain the poor class analysis that a lot of black elites, the 10%, have. It's because like it's easier for me to say I would sacrifice Ellie because I have a frame of reference for the system somewhat working.
Hey, I hope everybody's enjoying this video. If you have a little extra money, please head over to the Patreon and become a supporter. Also, we met our goal for GoFundMe, and I'm extremely grateful. If you're wondering why it's still up, it's because, unfortunately, the Texas medical system hasn't been good help, and I'm still having to work on my heart issues, and kind of sucks. But if you want to support that and help me get back up to Seattle so then I can get actual proper medical treatment from doctors that are more equipped to do what they need to do, then please donate to the GoFundMe as well. But either way, y'all are amazing, and fuck all these niceties my goody two-shoes doppelganger is talking about. I have an ultimatum for y'all. You can either give up the dough or give up ever seeing another FD signifier video again.
Y'all gotta help me. Big has gone off the deep end. Just give them whatever they want. I have a family. I still gotta make the white rapper video.
That's enough. And I'm not that softy Big. I'm the notorious Tiny. This nigga said his name was Tiny. Tiny. Shut up or you're next. The account number or the account letters are in the description. Now back to our regular scheduled programming. As Joel drives to the communist commune where his brother Tommy is, Ellie comes to and asks what happened, and he lies and tells her they gave up on the cure. He knows that she would be very upset. She even asks if Marlene was okay. This is the mindfuck I spoke about earlier, the conundrum of morality. We stuck questioning which was the moral decision. Would we have sacrificed someone we loved, even our own child, to save the world? But here's an even more heartbreaking question. If you chose to save the world by sacrificing a child you love, could you even consider yourself a good person? Would that not make you a horrible parent at minimum? Even more so, a horrid person. Why is it one's job to sacrifice all for the benefit of strangers? When I ask these questions, I find myself relating to Joel as a godfather, as lumpen proletariat. It makes me think about how us and our children are the sacrifice for this society. And that fireflies make me think of academics and supposed professionals demanding that we keep sacrificing our people and children for their benefit. And despite the clear violation of Ellie's agency, I would, if I was in Joel's position, protect Ellie at all costs.
Fuck them, I let this place burn. What have humans really done besides take and destroy? Our immense narcissism has no end. Even if you claim to be leftists are fucking around with capitalism. The revolutionaries died for the people and they take it and utilize it to build a non-profit that fatten our own pockets while we go extinct. So let them burn. Let them pay the price of their actions. Even the most conscious are just capitalist parasites at the end of the day. Because they choose not to move, they choose not to stand for their people. So let it burn.
Wait, would we really be any different in their shoes? Because if I'm honest, if I was in the Firefly's shoes, maybe I'd inform Ellie on the sacrifice she's making, but would I really turn my back on my people? Would I really give her a choice when my children, my family, whatever I had left was depending on me? Especially when it also saves the world. At that point, I would see Joel for the atrocities he's committed. I'd see Ellie as the former Federate youth she is and justify my actions as the greater good. The reason it's easy for some of us to empathize with Joel is we built a bond over the season with both him and Ellie, and not with the Fireflies. But at the end of the day, I think Jonathan Haidt and Joshua Green were right. We use morality to justify the decisions and actions we make. The egg comes before the chicken. I think all these philosophers ignore the obvious that is right in front of all of us. That the truth is, the thing that separates us from the animals is exactly nothing. We are divine, true, but not any more than any other life, no matter how small. I think what The Last of Us is exposing is that our idea of morality is nothing more than a figment which reality would testify is highly intertwined with the expansion of imperialism, in the destruction of cultures, the creation of hegemonies. It is used to uphold slave systems, even today's prison industrial complex, used to remove nuance and lessen instead of increase empathy. Morality is not the purveyor of equity. It is not the implementer of justice, which in truth, justice is its own can of rotting worms. What morality is the doctrine of empires, the tenets of religions, and the gavel that most often strikes the spinal cords of the oppressed. It is the respectability politics derived so often from Christian roots, but ignores the prostitutes, the thieves, and the beggars, the D-boys, the track stars, and the vagabonds. It serves to elevate the Pharisees and scribes, the academics and the professionals, the capitalists and the fascists. It is a mask that harmful people wear to minimize the impact of their actions through high-minded language and rejection of vulgarity, rejection of common people, further justified by the distance many of them have from the impact of their actions. In conclusion, I am amoral. But when I say amoral, it doesn't mean anything goes. It instead means that I refuse to take a mask to cover up my actions. That my decisions are my decisions, as is their consequences. It's neither that I am good nor bad, but instead I'm just a human, an animal, that moves in my own interests. Even within my collectivism, my anarcho-communism, my idea of having a society that's egalitarian and everyone's needs is met. That idea is still my own. I hold it because to me it sounds good, because I came from the struggle, because most of my peers are dead, imprisoned or strung out, just based off where they were born and to whom, which makes me feel the need for change. But I'm also not altruistic. None of us are. And these moralities allow us to lie to ourselves, to put out a false air of purity. Despite those who hold that air tend to be the most harmful. It's our time to leave behind what no longer serves us. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. Yeah, I know. I just ended with a Bible quote. But when it's knowledge, it's knowledge. Can learn from anything, you know?
Have you ever watched This Is Revolution podcast?
Maybe heard it once, but I don't. It sounds familiar, but I can't place it. Put it that way.
The guy Pascal Robert, who was in the Black Conservative video, he's a Haitian. He was like going through the perspective, like the history of the Haitian Revolution, and basically, even though like it seems like they don't fuck with, he didn't fuck with Toussaint Louverture, and I understood there's reasons why, but I didn't know how deep it got. But after Toussaint Louverture and who took over after him, Desailly, I think is his name. Desailly. After both of them died, everything went to shit because like the next dude up was like, hey, what if we paid the French? What if we allowed ourselves to go under French rule again and paid them money for beating them in a war? Which is the craziest thing like ever to have happened, that actually happened with their consent. You know what I'm saying? So regardless of like, you know, because I don't know enough about, now he's like opened up my mind to be like, let me go back and reread and like actually research that entire event. Because like, you know about the cool parts, you know, but you don't know about the political mechanisms and the aftermath. And like, I knew that Haiti's problem was that it had been in debt to France basically since it got free. But I didn't know that was like something they agreed to for no reason. Right?
Yo, I'm not an expert, but this is what I know about. First off, Toussaint, fuck that dude. That dude was a slave owner and some more shit. Yeah. Like everybody like talk about he's supposed to be the dude, but like he wasn't the dude.
He wasn't the dude.
Desailly was the dude. I don't know why he followed Toussaint. I have no clue why that motherfucker saw with Toussaint. It doesn't make sense to me. But as number two, Desailly was the dude. Desailly was the people who was like the land go to the people who work it. He was on that tip. But then the other leaders, the despots, killed the fuck out that dude for that. That's my understanding of what happened. So that then they could not just pay the French, but also collect more wealth for themselves while the people suffer. You know what I mean? So make sure to put money on my Patreon and to GoFundMe so we get this ransom. I'm gonna go deal with this bust ass dude, Tiny.
Ty will pay for the shit he's done. I will not miss this time.
Hands hand bloody, all money, yeah, blood money. War for Portugal, leaving Jim running. All money, yeah, blood money. Poppin' wicked murder, we find it funny. All money, it's blood money. Prison pigs and slave and they get the funding.